In this video, I'll continue to go through the binders of a collection that I bought in Kansas City recently. This binder is going to start out with the official tournament sealed deck and kind of go with a lot of the sets in the middle era of the game. So the sealed deck was nice to have these premium cards. You'd get 9 dark side, 9 light side in each sealed deck you bought. Some of them were and are still pretty useful, especially cards like It's a Hit. But more than that, if you played a sealed game, it gave you a system and some starships. That way it might made for a bit more of a playable deck if you were playing a sealed deck game, which was usually just a few packs and then those cards. So not a lot of cards to choose from playing sealed. Second anthology was kind of a retrospective of Premier and a little bit of Dagobah and Cloud City, but also a preview of Death Star 2 Endor and Special Edition. It was kind of neat to get a Mon Mothma and a Mon Calamari Star Cruiser, so some pretty big things from Return of the Jedi that I thought were kind of cool, and you would automatically get those in the second anthology. Next up is A New Hope Revised. So, white border set. It's actually, as far as I can tell, fairly short printed. White border Premier, over time, I think they did multiple printings of those. There's a lot of those, but this was mostly just to provide updated text more consistent with the modern game. So it's the same cards more or less, but there are different texts, more updated, more clear. So dark side, there's not a lot of good characters in here, but like Greedo, for example, is in there at least. Danik Jericho. Conquest is a nice Star Destroyer. Light side cards are, oh, there's a Death Star, of course, but the light side cards are a little bit better. So Wedge, and Chewie's up there. Of course, R2-D2's in this set. And definitely a lot of cool starships in A New Hope. Red 2, Red 5, and Leia's ship, Tantive 4. Always thought that Red 2 picture was quite cool. And then some red cards, so it's nice to see a whole set of the white border cards. They are pretty tough to get, especially now that a lot of people are trying to complete their collections. They never really were as desired by players, I would say. I think most people who want to buy cards for me to play would rather have black border, but now that a lot of people are wanting to complete their collections, it's been kind of tough to keep them in stock. Next up is Hoth Unlimited and Enhanced Premier. Starting out with Darkside, Ozzel and Veers. And if you saw my last video, this is my favorite page for Hoth here with the 2 Star Destroyers and the 4 walkers, but the 3 unique ones. It's a pretty valuable page. And just looks cool too. Trample. And that Commander Luke, from what I can tell inside the sheet, he looks pretty good shape. One of the first white border rares I ever got. Or I should say white border main characters. 3 Snowspeeders and the Snowspeeder cannon right next to him. And Anakin's lightsaber, and that looks like it has a real nice surface even through the sleeves there. A lot of the red cards with some pretty cool images. Lucky Shot Under Attack, thought those were interesting. Enhanced Premier was interesting. It was basically 4 booster packs of Premier plus 1 of these cards. And I believe when they were originally released there was a box of 12, so it was 3 Lukes, 3 Vaders, 2 Bobas, 2 Obi-Wans, and then 1 of Han and Leia. So even today, Han and Leia are definitely the most valuable ones. Probably Luke's maybe a $10 card, and believe it or not, Han and Leia are pushing 40 at this point. So it's tough to get those in stock in my store, but hey, there's 2 more copies, plus it's always nice to get more of these guys being main characters. Alright. Next up is Special Edition. So came out late in the year 1998. I'm thinking that was the first year that I got into Star Wars cards. I remember getting packs around Christmas from my dad. I'll show you what card I got in a little bit when we get to the light side, but there's a nice looking Vader. And we got a Jabba. This is a big set, I believe 324 cards. Lots of neat starships in this set. A couple of unique Obsidian Squadron TIE Fighters, the ones that were around at Cloud City. Added a lot of new sites for planets that we may not have seen before, like Coruscant was not in the original trilogy, but it got put in the special edition when they were celebrating the downfall of the Emperor, and then a lot of expanded universe planets that weren't really in the movies. Some pretty useful effects. I always like the occupation effects, trying to spread out and do more damage. Okay, got an Obi-Wan. One of the first rares I ever got, probably pretty soon after Luke, was a Leia that I got in a special edition pack. So that probably was December, well, probably Christmas Day of 1998, if my memory serves, based on the timeline that I saw there. Undercover Han. And plenty of very neat looking starships here. I always wanted to make Y-Wing decks, even though X-Wings were usually better. Objective cards too. I didn't really go over those in the dark side one, but let's see, which one's my favorite? Well, I'd probably have to say Hidden Base is my favorite, trying to run around in space and see if the Empire can find you before you damage them to death. Okay, and there's a card I still use in a lot of decks. Just by firing a non-lightsaber weapon, I can add a Battle Destiny. So a nice, neat binder, all special edition in there, with a very tiny card list, but that makes sense considering it's a huge set to get it to fit all in one page. And now we're into Endor, and what else? Oh, and Enhanced Cloud City, okay. Endor was a set that I never really bought much of until well after my first phase of the game, which probably went from about 98 to 04 or so. It's hard to remember exactly. But lots of neat Imperial average Joes, you could say, so not a lot of Vaders or things like that. But the other cool thing about this set was all the ATSTs you could get. 6 different unique ATSTs, each with their own little perk. And some good light side main characters here, though. Chewie and Leia, and Han, and Crick sort of counts as a main character, just like Mon Mothma sort of does. Plenty of Ewoks. And 3PO's in here, too. Sniper rifle and Chewie's bowcaster. That's Chewie's first weapon in the game, if I recall correctly. And there's Walkling, kind of a silly card to be worth upwards of $20, but it's very useful in a lot of light side decks after it was virtualized, so it's held its value pretty well. Okay, Endor foil set too. I was pretty sure there'd be one here, but it's nice to see it here for sure. So we got our, I believe these are the 2 rare foils, and then for this one I think it's Han and 3PO that are the rare foils, and at first glance they look like they're in pretty nice shape. Enhanced Cloud City was similar to Enhanced Premier in that the idea was make a few good cards that you'd get 3 of in each of the packs you'd buy, and then that'd be a good way to get rid of all the surplus Cloud City packs that they must have had, whether it was sheets that they had to cut up and package. I'm not sure if that's how it was, or if they just had a bunch of booster boxes, and I have no idea how that worked really, but it seems like the enhanced sets were all made for the ones that they had the most cards in, but definitely some main characters. I mean, 2 Landos in a 12-card set, so it was chock full of interesting and useful stuff. And overall, I'm very satisfied with the condition from what I can see. These look like they're in nice shape. There's nothing wrong with a well-loved collection that got played a lot, but it's always nice to make sure you appeal to a wider range of buyers when they're in really nice shape. So Dagobah with lots of bounty hunters, and then their ships and their weapons. So some highlights there on the dark side. And Luke and Yoda, of course, and they look like they're in pretty good shape. So a lot of these Dagobah cards had a big text change to them, just because there was a lot of cards in here that just kind of made the game not so fun to play for your opponent, because if you didn't have the counter, and sometimes there wasn't a counter because they maybe didn't test them all that great, it would kind of shut the game down. Here we go, Reflections, one of my favorite sets. And that's a heck of a page to start out with. 2 Vaders, Veers, Tarkin, and Boba all on one page. I'm not going to take the Vader out right now, but just kind of moving it back and forth in the light, it looks pretty good. A lot of starships here, that's pretty cool looking. Another nice page. 2 Lukes, 2 Obi-Wans, 2 Hans on one page. It's very nice to see, and that Luke looks excellent. Since there's so many more light side characters, main characters, I would say there's a lot of really cool stuff you can get. Foil Falcon, I've been running short on those. Then we get into the red cards, which aren't quite as interesting, but they're still pretty neat. So that was kind of the middle sets. I do have one more video of the later sets before going on into some custom sets that were made by, well, I think they were printed by the previous owner, but they might have been made by other people. But very nice to end with Reflections, a lot of foils of cards that are still to this day awesome to get, but especially back then they would have been very exciting to get anytime you get a main character, especially when the game was in its heyday. And I didn't have a lot of money. That was always fun to do. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope you tune in for the next one where we'll get into some of the more episode 1 oriented sets and some other odds and ends.